Hello, welcome to the 404 Films podcast. We have a little different intro today. This is an original piece from a friend of ours, Siobhan McKeown, wrote it for a short movie or a fake trailer I made way back when, starring some of my guests today. I have more new people, some very new, interesting people, and Glenn, who you might remember from the
And one
Simpsons
return,
Trios
yeah.
Horror episode. So, okay, let's do introductions then, okay? Obviously, I'm Carl. We have Glenn again. There you go, Glenn.
How are you getting on?
We have Andrew Bradley.
Hello, nice to be here.
Wow, very, very politician-like on a radio show. Very good. And David Dixon.
Hello, hi.
So today we're talking about something completely different, and you're probably like, why the fuck are they talking about this on a films podcast? But it is my podcast, so I guess I can talk about whatever I want. And we're going to talk about Last of Us Part 2, and that's like the closest game to a movie I can think of. So it's pretty much like we're talking about a movie, except, you know, in it a lot more. The stakes are a lot higher for you. So the guests here are a little, I guess, more game savvy than I am. I'm particularly bad at games. I'm still playing a game that's over like 10 years old. Still playing Call of Duty Black Ops on loop.
I won't hear a bad word about that now, in fairness.
The only reason I still have my PS3.
There are worse games to be playing.
I mean, the reason why we're talking about this though is I feel like it's the right time to talk about it. We're going to talk about a game that came out, I think, about 6 or 7 months ago. I think at the start of the lockdown, and now we're coming full circle, and we're almost back there in March. So Ireland. I don't know who's listening to this, but Ireland isn't back in another huge big lockdown. And what a better time to play a game about the end of the world than actually being at the end of the world. When did it come out again? March or something, was it?
May, I think. Middle of May. It was Game of the Year as well. So
times.
Yeah.
19th of June.
We're going to talk mainly about the second game today, but if we kind of go back and talk about the first one as well. But when the first one was kind of advertised and everything, I kind of knew I was going to play it. The guy who made one of my favorite games, which was Uncharted. I loved all of them. Neil Druckmann had a big part in it. I'm not sure if he was the sole maker of Uncharted or he had a big part in it, but it's basically just if they took Uncharted and made it a drama and made it like a serious kind of horror game, survival horror. I mean, I guess that's what you'd call it. So obviously I was going to like it, you know?
I think that's a good description.
Yeah, it's very different compared to their previous. Like obviously they made Naughty Dog made Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter, and then Uncharted. But even though Uncharted's very like I love the Uncharted games as well, but they're very kind of pulpy. Nothing wrong with that. I love pulpy stuff. But The Last of Us is a lot more
emotional.
What's the word?
Yeah, it's a lot more. Well, obviously it's brutal, but it's very much more like the stakes are a lot higher, and it's less of a fun kind of romp of a game. You know,
it's a great story as well, which is kind of rare in like there are games that have great stories, but I think if you were to tally up the amount of games that have genuinely great stories versus books or films, I think unfortunately games don't have quite as many at the moment.
I think that's why we're going to talk about it today, and that's why I wanted to do this, which is we've been had this on the burner for ages. So Andrew, you even did a promo for us that hopefully everyone has gone and seen now.
I hope so.
But that was made last time we were in lockdown, you know? I solely kind of play story games. I might not be good at them, but like my favorite games are like the Uncharted games and this and Spider-Man. Like they're all story heavy games with big emotional beats to them. So if anything that's like a movie, I want to play it. So yeah, it's rare to see a story like a game that has such a good story that you can't just watch it. Like Glenn, you were saying that your sister didn't even play the first game.
Yeah, watching its entire walkthrough. Yeah.
Like watch the whole big walkthrough like it was a film.
I think that probably speaks to how cinematic the game is. I think when it came out at the time, it was a game that kind of stood apart from the others in how cinematic it was and what it did for narrative storytelling in games and what it did for video game acting. Because I think games have always been a bit behind with the quality of acting. They've always been a bit more hammy. I think it's just the nature of the medium because of how much more.
It's the priorities of what you're focusing on. Yeah, there are obviously Metal Gear and stuff. There've been exceptions, but for the most part, it's kind of lagged behind a bit. Like you ever look at the early voice acting, Resident Evil 1, it's like, oh no.
And I think a lot of that kind of hammy stuff probably comes down to a game just has way more voice acting and stuff. But I think this was just done so well and so tightly, and I think that's why even going back and playing it, I played it back before The Last of Us 2, and I think it holds up really well. Whereas other games from 2013 probably wouldn't.
Just on the voice acting though as well, yeah, and it was one of those games that didn't fall into the trap of getting a quote unquote real actor to be in it. Where it's okay, we're gonna take Peter Dinklage, I'll use him as an example, and put him in a game because he's a movie star, and then not being able to translate well because he's not a voice actor and he does a really bad performance. You got two pretty great voice actors carrying this whole, well, yeah, carrying both of the games. Now the second one has Jeffrey Wright shows up as Isaac in the second game. Oh, this is going to spoil so much.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert for the entire Last of Us saga.
Spoiler alert, Joel dies. Joel dies.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, we gave it like, what?
Yeah, 6-second warning right there.
I mean, look, I lasted, what is it, like how many months? I only ended up playing it because you ended up giving me a lend of it, Andrew, but like it was how many months between me playing it and then it coming out, and it was like I avoided Joel, the whole spoiler, but when everyone kind of turns around to you, and this is the whole thing with like spoilers in movies and stuff, that I hate them. And when people say to you, oh, a character will show up at the end of this, or you won't believe the ending, or did it get spoiled for you? There's a big thing for something to get spoiled for you. You're kind of like,
see the big twist.
Well, what the fuck? You know, now I'm gonna guess what it is, and it sounds kind of bad. But when you literally, somebody you know will come up to you and be like, "Has it been spoiled for you?" There's a pretty big spoiler in it. You're like, great. Now somebody's gonna fucking die. I know somebody's gonna die, or something's gonna happen, or you know. But when it's like just immediately comes out and it's like, whoa, wait till you get to the big twist. It's just like, I won't tell you what the twist is, but there's a big twist. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, now I'm gonna guess. You know, I knew one of them was up to die, like, you know.
I mean, it wasn't helped in the fact that there was a massive leak very shortly before it came out. You know, if you were on the internet at all, there it was a very dangerous place for people just throwing in spoilers.
Even if you weren't looking for them, which kind of really sucks, like people going around ruining it for people, searching people out just to screw them over.
Fake out videos, you know. They did the big thing for I know, like other movies that I could draw comparisons to, like Logan and stuff like that. You know, in Avengers Endgame, there's huge like, look at this collage of photos, and you look at it and you're squinting, and then it says in like really fine letters, you know, Iron Man dies or some shit like that, you know. But just on that topic of Joel dying, I don't want to get into like too much of the weird toxic shit that's come out of this second game, so this kind of be my only note about it, and you can say what you will about it. But I cannot get over how upset people got for a fictional character dying in a game, a character that's literally, when you watch it, if you're really into it, it ends. Like for him, that's the end of his. There's nothing more you can do with the Joel character. I think after that point, it was like a really good decision to kill him off, in my opinion. And people who don't like that, fair enough. If you're gonna be a dickhead about it, I guess you're just a dickhead, you know. But I didn't see his character going anywhere after that. It was a perfect kind of starting point to the entire game.
I agree, and I think, you know, it gave motivation for the whole game. I don't know if you want to go fully. Are we going to go fully into The Last of Us 2 now, or do you want to?
We'll just jump back and forth, like
jump between?
So like
as it flows.
I guess if you're listening to us, you're a fan of them. I'd hope so, because I just spoiled it. But if not, the whole ending is that, you know, Ellie would have to die for humanity to be saved, and Joel decides, no, fuck that, I'm going to kill everybody, and I'm going to keep her as my surrogate daughter.
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. Ain't done 'em a damn bit of good, neither. They've stopped looking for a cure.
Just a really kind of fucked up selfish act, and that's why it's this bittersweet kind of ending of the first one that made so many fucking macho guys playing a cry because Joel's my guy, you know what I mean? It's like that one point of emotion, and when he was killed, it just ruined it for everyone, you know?
I think killing off Joel near the beginning of part 2 was a great decision, and I think it was one that, like, it didn't surprise me all that much. I mean, I had watched a couple of trailers, and it was very clear that the game was centered around Ellie. So I guess if you weren't looking at trailers and stuff, I don't know, maybe. But I mean, it's like her face is on the box. It's very clearly her story. The first game was Joel's story. His story was told, and I think his character was explored. And I think at this point, Ellie is the more interesting character because she's grown up and she's, you
100%.
know, it's
100%.
kind of exploring.
It needed to move on, you know?
Yeah.
I would say it does explore his character a bit, though. Like in the because in the game there's flashbacks and stuff to Ellie and Joel hanging out and stuff, like when they go to the museum. I would I would say that does kind of explore Joel's character a bit more, you know. Like I do think though that I do think it was time for him to die though. I think they got as far as
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it is
that's
good
true.
motivation for the character. I wasn't too surprised that they killed him off, and I think it was, you know,
Yeah.
it was well done in how it played into the story. Like,
It was funny. It was not funny that he died. It was funny the way it was revealed to me, because I was like, okay, he's dead for sure. But then she's gone around the house, and I'm laughing more at my reaction, where I'm like, oh, is she gonna go into through like a room and Joel be
Yeah.
like in a coma? But then she's there
Yeah.
like smelling his jacket, and I'm like, I don't think he's coming back. And then it just cuts to his grave, and it's like, okay, yeah, you know, he's definitely dead, you know.
I do. For me, it's first of all, I think after the first game, it was inevitable that one of them was probably
Well,
going to
well,
die.
David, you play both of these. You don't have the same, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You
I was
play
gonna
both of them back to back when the second one
back to
came out.
back for the first time. Yeah, because I wanted to spite people by not playing the last one, because everyone told me to. I didn't have the same what's the word, built up over years sort of attachment to the characters. Like, I grew attached to them definitely over the course of the game, but I played the first one and then the second one came out like the week after. So for me, it suddenly felt very sudden. I was like, oh, okay. I was sort of expecting more. I don't know why I felt that way, but now my only issue is more how it was done within the confines of the story. It seemed a bit out of character, a little to me personally, after just playing the first one. You know, the immediately trusting these people.
Tommy, this is my brother.
Joe.
Although Tommy, Joel's brother, is the one who reveals who they are. It all seemed very like, oh, this isn't a good idea. This isn't a good idea. You shouldn't do that. But again, I just played the first, so maybe I was,
It's taken the time skip
it has been 5 years.
as well into context,
yeah.
that they've softened
Yeah.
quite a bit, and that's what I'm gonna say. It was really out of character for Abby to do that, and I was like, David, she wasn't in the first game, man. Like, you didn't even play both of them, have you?
I get what people are saying about how it seemed kind of out of character for them to trust them so quickly, but I do think the years in the interim that we missed out, where,
could have a big,
you know, they've been living a settled life in a town which is, you know, fairly normal kind of day-to-day existence. It's not the survival situation they're in anymore. So
He's also been shunned.
It makes a bit
He
of
was
sense.
shunned by Ellie, so
Yeah,
he's
you're so
probably
mellow.
trying to be a better person after being, you know, quite a fucking cold, you know, killer, I guess. Like, at that whole, like, you're running around shooting people in the
crazed
dick
gunman.
and everything at the end of that first game, you know. So I guess he's trying to be a better person. So, I mean, it was, well, it's like the circumstances of the scene. There's like a blizzard and like hordes of the clickers and stuff. So what do you call them? Like infected. That's like one of them. There's different stages.
yeah, there's the runners. The runners, I think, are in that particular scene. Like, they're all chasing after them.
I think it is possible. I know it's a game about like survival and trust and stuff, or like survival and lack of trust of everyone. But like, I think at the end of the day, people do kind of look for connection and stuff like that. So it kind of makes a bit of sense with what you're saying. I mean, if you look at like the first game, you had.
Yeah.
You know, there are multiple times where you meet up with strangers and just briefly
Yeah.
team up with them. You've got, like, in the first game, you got Henry and Sam.
So basically, what you're saying is David is wrong in his opinion.
What's it like being wrong, David?
If you can say that more clearly for the viewers, just to tell David he's wrong.
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry,
what's it
guys.
like having a stupid opinion?
Yeah, it's a very novel experience.
It's humbling. It's a humbling experience. It happens so
A
rarely.
humbling experience. I apologize. I'll never be wrong again.
Dave, what was it like though playing it back to back? I made the mistake of not playing them back to back. Like, I know, Glenn, I think you played them back to
Yeah, I
back.
replayed it just before, and
I'm not sure about you, Andy.
I did. Well, I played the first one back in the day, and a couple of times since, and then played it in the lead up to the new one. So I did play them back to back.
Yeah, no, I played it back in the day as well, and it was one of those games that's like, you know, this is amazing. It's my favorite game. They announced that they're gonna make a second one, and it's a bit like, oh, maybe don't do that. Don't touch it. You know, don't ruin it.
Before I go into playing the back-to-back, I do think that making a sequel at all, I don't know if I would have done that. Easy for me to say. I think the way the first one ended would have been, I don't know, I felt the original ended fine, but, you know, hey, they can do what they want.
It was a pretty like cut and dry ending. I like when they said let's do a sequel. It's a bit like there's not really anything to come from that. Like there's not much you can do. They obviously did do something great with it.
Yeah,
and
you
it
could
was,
follow different people, I guess, or something like that. They feel very different. Playing them back to back, they feel very different.
They definitely do. There's a very different tone in the second one.
It's more bleak. It's more depressing.
I think that the second one tells a completely different story, though. So I think there was room for that second.
Yeah, when the part 2 was announced, I was definitely in that. I had that same feeling where it was like, okay, I don't know, but I think it was unlikely to be bad with Naughty Dog's track record and the games they've made, and
it was going to be entertaining.
It's kind of just okay. I'll trust them.
It was going to play well. It was going to be
Yeah,
entertaining.
definitely.
The second one has a completely different theme, and like they kind of ruined the theme for me. Not like obviously didn't ruin the game, but like it's a whole revenge tale, and I love revenge stories. There's not much new you can do with them, but this one's really great because it's like, I'm going to get revenge for you for doing this, and then I'm going to get revenge on you, but not if I get revenge first. I'm coming back to get more revenge. So it's just like how it never ends. But when they were like, Abby's walking around her facility, and she's like, oh, are you done reading The Count of Monte Cristo? It's just like, oh, I wonder what they're talking about there, So that was kind of
The
like,
theme
okay.
here is revenge.
Yeah.
I think the big departure in this game was, and they hid it in the run up. It wasn't in trailers. It was very much, they very much wanted it to be a surprise. Was the big switch in the middle where you go from playing as Ellie to playing as Abby, and then you slowly realize, or at least I slowly realized that this isn't just
It's quite a long
a
game.
one-off. This is the rest of the game, or a good chunk of the rest of the game is going to be playing as this stranger.
I love that. I learned to love it. First, when you're doing it, you're a bit like, because the only time you play as Joel is when he's riding the horse into town, and he tells his brother that the whole story, and that's it. I think that you never play as him again.
Yeah, I don't think you play as him in any of the flashbacks. I think it's always
I think it is. You don't after that.
The idea of playing as Abby straight after, I think everyone was just like getting the character to like run face first into like hordes of the zombies or whatever, or like throwing her off a cliff or doing all this shit, Like, but the more it goes on, it just shows you how cool like character development can be, changing a character who you think is a dickhead. It's like the whole thing to me felt like a TV show, because it's more rare in a movie for you to look at a bad guy and be like, oh, now I get him, because a TV show has so much more time to give you a whole episode where you're just following around the villain and you realize what, like, his whole backstory and what he's had to go through. So you completely get it. That being said, when you fight Ellie as Abby, the minute like she gets stabbed in the neck and you die, I was like, okay, that's the end of Abby's character. I guess we were moving on. And it was like, oh no, she's a boss. You have to fight Ellie like a boss.
Yeah, that was kind of felt a little
took me by
strange.
surprise.
Yeah, for me it was first of all, in terms of gameplay and just story, I do think it's a very bold move to do something like that. I don't know how many really like highbrow like AAA games would ever be allowed to get away with that, just doing something that crazy.
I can make this quick. I know you're in here.
My only two issues, quote unquote, would be, I think in terms of pure pacing, it kind of, you're building up at the end of Ellie's story, and then you have to build up all over again. When I first got to Abby's side, I found it hard to keep playing for a bit, because it's like, oh well, I'm kind of...
Yeah, it is a sharp transition, yeah.
Yeah, and because Abby's side has so much stuff going on, I thought Ellie's side in retrospect is kind of boring. Like, a lot of not much happens. You're just trying to get from one place to the other, if you really think, like, plot-wise, compared to what goes on with Abby's.
I feel like Abby's exploring a completely different part of the world entirely, and then so it goes on longer.
It's new.
It feels like there's more in it.
I agree that it's something that was genuinely unexpected. I think whether or not you like it, you have to give them credit for doing such a bold move and being able to push the boundaries of kind of storytelling in games like this, because I can't think of any other example of anything like this before. I do agree though that like when you're doing something like this, there's going to be issues, and I think you're right about pacing, because I think really it ends on a cliffhanger with Ellie, and that's
like 15 hours
like
until you
and then you're like, oh okay, we're gonna get a bit of backstory and then we're gonna lead back into it, but you slowly realize that I was realizing as I was running around, and I was like, okay, of new weapons. Okay, there's a whole...
Yeah, it's nearly like you're waiting.
There's a whole upgrade system for all these new weapons, and I'm starting from scratch here. oh, okay, this is going to be a long time.
It's funny, like it was like I've seen like other media, like I've seen TV shows do that as well. With a movie, you can do it because it's non-linear. But back when I used to watch The Walking Dead, which not a good show, but one of the things they do is they focus on characters an episode, so they end with a cliffhanger like what Ellie had, and then next week it's a completely different character that you forgot about, and it's all about them. So you wait like 2 or 3 weeks to get back to that cliffhanger, and that's the real issue I thought with the pacing. But I didn't really have it once you kind of get through it, and it because it just piles on more and more entertaining things as Abby, and because it's all new, it's like you're fighting the scars, and you're fighting the Rat King, and you're doing all this cool new shit, and you're also getting this really good emotional kind of arc with this character, with her and Owen and her dad. Like Joel killed her dad, and you find out. So I get it with people, but I think it would have been a lot easier if they hadn't have just ended it that quickly with a cliffhanger. If it just kind of, I don't know, it just didn't end it with a cliffhanger. Just she gets back there and then we cut away and we play as Abby, you know?
I think there could have been different ways of doing it, like maybe day one, Abby, day one. Like, I think there are other ways you could have played. They may have considered all this and just decided that they were willing to put up with that as the opportunity cost and just go all in on how they had it. They might have just wanted that Stark feeling.
I think I had heard that there were actually some decisions made quite late in the process where they had these scenes and they were like, okay, where do we put them?
Yeah.
And they kind of built it after having the scenes already made. Like there was stuff that was shown in the trailers that I had heard, I think like the scene near the end with Joel and Ellie on the doorstep, that I think that they were considering. They weren't sure where to put that. And the barn scene as well, they seemed randomly placed. I think it's great though. I think that they're great just peppered throughout the way they did the flashbacks.
I liked having to play as Abby for that long, because after you've played as Ellie, everything that you've done as Ellie gets better and better when you play as Abby. So it's like you're there petting Abby's dog, and it's like, oh, that's the dog we just shot in the face. You know what I mean? I felt bad enough doing it.
Shit. Stupid dog.
And then when you find out how close it is to Abby, you know what I mean? That's like, that was her dog, and just seeing all of her friends get fucking mown down was like amazing. Like the pregnant woman gets killed, Owen gets killed, and I was upset about that. And then Manny gets his face blown off, which is I didn't think that was. It never occurred to me that was Tommy that you were fighting through that whole sniper battle thing, which is a fucking great set piece.
Yeah, I only found that out kind of way later. That was really cool.
Screw it.
Like that stuff is cool. I understand what people are saying though, in the sense that, like, playing devil's advocate, because I have been wrong before, as the rest of you have said, so I'll be wrong again. The whole on two fronts. First, I understand people saying that if you take it from Ellie's perspective in the story, like for example at the ending, just to jump there for a sec, when she doesn't kill Abby, and maybe for us playing, like I was very glad she didn't, and that, you know, you can break the cycle as it were.
Go. Just take him.
But in the context of the story, I don't know if Ellie herself would do that necessarily, to get that close and then just decide, actually, do you know what, I'm not going to do this.
Well,
and then going back. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, you go ahead. You finish your point, and then I'll give out to you and how you're wrong.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. Apologies, yeah, in advance. And then earlier on, I do, again, I can see why people think that it's a little, what's the word? What's the word you would use? Emotionally manipulative, to just have, you know, oh no, you killed, you know, such and such. I don't really think it is overly. I understand why people would think that. I didn't really think that. I'm like, you know, they are, you know, you're killing people here who they know. I'm just trying to say, I play devil. I understand. I don't think all the criticism of the game necessarily means that you hate whoever or hate this or hate that. Just trying to, you know, acknowledge that side of the critique of the game. But anyways, I am wrong, as you said.
No, I get you. It's just my obviously you're not wrong. It's a very healthy conversation. You fool. It's like the reason I think she comes in at a much lighter kind of tone is like the whole Ellie kind of, that ending I fucking love as well. And my problem with pacing is people said the game is too long. I say to those people, fuck you. You know, how much money did you pay on this game? Like, you want to get something that's worth it, like, you know what I mean? So a long game I like. So the only issue I have with it is the ending. the whole last like time jump could have been a bit longer, like in regards to the resort bad guys. You know, when like Dog the Bounty Hunter, the fella that looks like Dog the Bounty Hunter, shows up.
Oh, no, big girl. Blonde. Arms like mine.
That could have been a little longer for me, and they could have been fleshed out a bit more because they just seemed like characters they were throwing into it, like villains for like
We just need a couple of bad guys, kind of thing.
yeah, just for Ellie to shoot.
I think it was that it felt like they were there just to have someone to shoot at, rather than having much of a meaning to the story.
Yeah, no, definitely, but like a fucking amazing set piece. Like the radio is playing, because I thought the first one was going to end with this when Joel is in the laboratory, you know. But doing it in the second game, it's like everything they didn't do in the first one, they kind of fixed in the second one. So like Ellie's like releasing all the clickers on the chains. And the guys are listening to a radio in the resort, and she's setting them free, and she's killing guys, and they're getting killed by the clickers, and it's this whole kind of thing. But they could have been fleshed out a little more because they were pretty evil. And the reason why I think, you know, you're saying I don't know if Ellie would have killed Abby. I just want to say it's really fucking annoying that they both end kind of the same, Ellie and Abby. So I'm gonna get mixed them up like all the time. But when she sees Abby up there, it's like she is like, Abby was a pretty brutal person. When people say that like Abby's the worst, she did no worse than what Joel did. Joel tortures people in the first game, like multiple, like he shoots him in the dick like 10 times or some shit. But like when you see, like Abby's not perfect either, but when you see Abby at the end of it, she's been through some fucking shit.
Oh,
like,
she's been broken down.
She's
Yeah,
been
it's horrific. Yeah.
and God knows, possibly even worse. Like, so I guess when she sees what she's gone through, it's like it's not even a fight. Like, is she just really gonna go up and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go kill this tortured woman? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of has
She
to
like
sink
takes
in.
her down.
Yeah.
Isn't she like hanging up on a stick or something? And Ellie takes her down just to fight her.
She threatens Lev.
Yeah.
I love all the new characters as well. Lev, such a good character. That whole sequence actually gave me fucking vertigo when you're going through all the skyscraper tunnels and bridges.
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, that was really well done. I think there was one bit where you fall, and I was like, oh shit! I was like, actually felt like I got really into it.
Not the most popular route. Try not to look down.
Shit.
Yeah, it was a really nice attention to detail where whenever you were playing as Abby, if you ever looked down at a height, no matter where it was, the screen would start to shake. And I was like, oh, that's really cool.
The character would start like freaking out more and more. The whole flashback with Ellie, as I think you said, David, like emotional manipulation in a way where it's like, it's a great place to put the flashback, and it's kind of nice little kind of cherry on top. It's this bittersweet moment where she's like, I'd like to forgive you.
I don't think I can ever forgive you for that, but I would like to try.
I'd like that.
I like that too. It made me a lot happier and stuff. But honestly speaking, though, imagine, you know, how cool it would have been, or like the balls on them to be like, oh, that never happened. She never had a moment like that with him. She never got to say how she felt. He just died, and that was it. And that's how the world is. And so this is a much more cinematic kind of, oh, remember this flashback where I got to forgive him? And I like it. It's very nice, and it made me feel all warm inside, and it stopped me being too depressed when the game was over. But like, I don't know, it would have been kind of cool either way, because the last thing she really got to do was get pissed off at him, and then he got his head caved in, you know? I don't know what you think about
I like
it,
the
but
flashback, but I see where you're coming from.
I think it was a nice little.
I wouldn't trade it for the flashback that we had.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah, I think it was needed. It was nice, but it's like, either way would have been cool. Like, it's bleak already. Like, anytime they introduce music into stuff like that, you know, when they start singing Pearl Jam, you know, it's just like, oh god, you know, it's already like emotional, you know. Fucking great music throughout the game, though. This one was a lot better though, with using popular songs like pop culture, while the first one was all kind of score, which is always amazing though, you know.
Yeah, no, I really like how they brought in the music. The Future Days by Pearl Jam, and then they had a completely missable moment as well is Take On Me, when you're playing as Ellie in the open world bit, when you just come into Seattle with Dina, and she just plays it in the music store. And it's like just a really cool thing that you might miss if you happen to not walk into the right part of that into the right part of the store and find the guitar and stuff.
They have other stuff as well. They have like I don't remember what song is playing, but in the resort, the guy is listening to a song on the radio is really fucking cool. It's the perfect song to be playing when you're kind of sieging that base. but I can't remember exactly what the
Mm.
song was. But they did, like, I think they had other modern music throughout it. Oh yeah, they have "Good Day" by Ice Cube playing when you go through the. I think it's one of the. What are they? They're not the Firefly anymore. They're post Firefly.
The wolves. Is it,
Yeah,
or?
the wolves. Is it the wolves? Yeah. So like you're going through the vent and somebody's listening to "Good Day" by Ice Cube, and I was like, oh, this is fucking great. You know, they have one of my other favorite games referenced in it, Hotline Miami,
yeah.
and they have that soundtrack just
Oh,
going.
yeah.
You know.
Hands up. Easy. Easy. You know a girl named Nora? Sure, yeah.
And you put that in the little promo. Somebody's dead beside a Vita, you know?
I did, yeah.
Somebody said it was a metaphor. I think, David, you were like, it was a metaphor for the actual life of the Vita, you know?
The Vita, yeah. Sony's just telling us, just stop playing the Vita, guys.
Short-lived, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I did think it was pretty funny that it's like she gets brutally murdered, just like
Fuck you and your Vita.
just like that console did.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I also just thought I thought it was such a weird moment as well. It was like, because it was really, they really focused in on it, and they really kind of made it and they showed it in a trailer as well.
Yeah.
Just hearing the like the Hotline Miami music in the soundtrack of that game is fucking amazing. But hearing that just play in Last of Us is like, it must be fucking great for the guys who made the game, because it's like, it's a cult favorite, but it's like to get that kind of recognition of the one of the most popular games in the world and will be remembered as that.
Yeah,
it's just like
it's a
so
great
cool.
game.
Like the other feature, and like in regards to the music, is I don't know how to play a guitar, but that whole thing that you can play a guitar for real in the game in the theater, like that. First of all, that scene is probably one of the saddest for me. Is when she starts playing the Pearl Jam song again. Anytime you're back in there, you can pick it up and play it, and you can see people online playing like Johnny Cash's "Hurt" because they know all the chords. You can actually, what a fucking great feature that they put in just for fun, like, you know.
Totally didn't need to be there, but it was just one of those little things that they add in that you could like
just flexing.
Again, totally optional.
And the things people have been able to play.
Oh, definitely.
Very impressive. There's all sorts of videos online of people playing anything you can imagine, and they're just doing it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember people bitching as well about that at the end of the game. She's playing the guitar and she can't play it now that her fingers are gone, her two fingers.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody's like,
I thought that was fantastic.
yeah, and then they just turn the guitar around. It's just like, fuck off, you know?
I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do that. I thought that was so well done, because like the whole thing is like she goes to get revenge for Joel, and like what happens in the end? She doesn't kill your one because of a flashback of Joel, gets her fingers bitten off, and then like that one big connection that she had with Joel of playing the guitar is now kind of lost.
Yeah, I guess you could
well
also
done. And
say
she goes home to like the empty house as well.
yeah.
Like she abandoned this for like to get her revenge, and now what does she have? You know what I mean?
Well, she lost
That's-
a
I
part
thought
of
that was so
herself.
good.
Her finger.
Well, her two fingers specifically, yeah.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah, no, I do think it's really good. I love the ending.
I like the boat as well when you're entering the game. You know, when it's on the ocean, and at the very end, it's on the beach in the sunset, the sunrise.
Oh yeah, I didn't know what the fuck that boat was in the menu for ages, and then at the end you're like, hey, I find it, because I was playing so much that you just kind of forget about it. Every time you click into the menu, you just kind of like, what the fuck is there? Is there like an aquatic kind of level to this or whatever? There is, but not to that. Like, doesn't look like that.
Not to
boat.
in that sense, yeah.
What did you think about? Because I'm not the type of guy to really know anything about it, but the gameplay and stuff, I know when you use. We're not going to get too technical here because, God, there's so many other podcasts you can listen to that we'll talk about that and everything, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure you do. So maybe talk a bit about what you thought of the gameplay, or if it was shit or not. Well, it wasn't shit. I'll answer that right now. But you know, what was the problem with it?
It definitely wasn't shit. I think The Last of Us, the original one was great because it combined the gameplay and the narrative so well. Like you've got. Like a lot of games, you know, you'd have cutscene and then gameplay and stuff. But I think The Last of Us, and other games too, to be fair to it, and it has moved on a lot and gotten a lot better since the first one came out, but it blended them together really well. And with The Last of Us 2, I just felt that other games had caught up in that area, and that there were just parts of it where I was like, okay, I'm playing a game and I'm mowing down enemies because I want to get to the next bit of story. And don't get me wrong, it's done really well. Like it's still done better than most games where it's totally seamless transitioning from gameplay to everything. But I just thought it messed with the pacing a bit for me, and maybe it's just because I'm shit. But I just felt that I was like, there were large parts and large set pieces of gameplay which started to get a bit repetitive and great. But I think it was also partly because I started really feeling this when playing as Abby as well, where I was like, I just want to get to the next bit because I was starting to lose my patience with it.
I feel like your criticism is the game was so good and emotionally impactful that I wanted to just get to more of the story.
The game got in the way of the game.
Like, well, yeah, it that's exactly what it is.
But no,
the game that is got in the way of the story.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big
little bit for me.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly legit, especially in a game. That the gameplay is getting in the way of the story. Now, I don't think it's
game one more time, and we'll all win some sort of prize.
Game. The first Last of Us has incredible pacing. I think that it's split up into stealth sequences, exploration / story, and gunfights. I assume everyone's listening to this has played it, but the way it sort of rotates them around. You have your stealth section, then you have a story section, then you have, and it just keeps going for the whole game. And the game's only around 12 to 15 hours, and I think it works perfectly. I beat the game in 2 sittings, and I didn't find it dragged on at all. I know, I'm just amazed. I'm just that good. I'm just that good.
The story itself has a good pacing too, though, because it's seasons.
Yeah.
So it's probably easier to get those, as you said, combat and then sneak missions or stealth missions and put them all together because they're following this. We're going to do the seasons, you know what I mean? Rather than...
Yeah. It did... Like what Andrew was saying there, like in the first one even, there were parts, mostly near the end, 'cause I knew I was getting to the end because, it's been 7 years just through osmosis, when things are coming up, so I'm like, okay, I'm really anxious to get to the next part. But in The Last of Us 2, they do that same thing with the rotating gameplay styles. They add a lot more. There's a lot more stuff you can do. You can jump now, and all this stuff. Amazing, revolutionary. But I think the 30-hour length, or however long it is, might just be a little too long to be able to be carried by that. I think it's not like it gets boring, but I think it's carried a little too long with that, where you're like, okay, this is getting a little,
I was definitely
tired.
getting a little, and I know, Carl, you were saying that I don't, what's the problem with it being longer? Like, it's more of it, and I get that it's more story and it's more
bang for your buck.
Brilliant part of it, but I think you do just get fatigued playing the same gameplay sequences over and over.
I get that. Yeah, there's only so much.
That's how I felt.
There's only
anyway.
so much new things they can do. I found that with just to make a comparison to one of the other games I played. Very rare for me to do this anyway, to play a new game, but the Miles Morales game, the first one, the Spider-Man game, I fucking loved. I loved all of that, but playing the Miles Morales game, it's much shorter. But I was to a point where I'm like, didn't I just play something like this like 5 minutes ago? Like, it's the same kind of thing, kind of over and over again, which is fine. But it's it's like if you're playing like a 30-hour game, there's no new shit that you can really introduce to make it kind of like the odd thing,
I know.
Like the Rat King and stuff like that.
Depends on how you play it as well. Like how many sittings or over what length of time. It can really
for sure.
So.
We all don't play it in 2 sittings like you, David. We're all not as amazing.
I was pretty amazing at the end, by the way.
But I feel like The Last of Us 1 kind of it explored a lot of aspects of what you can do with the gameplay mechanics. Like the whole survival thing, and with the zombies and the hunters and stuff. And it's like there's gonna be more of that, and it's gonna feel like more of the same. Just because like it's largely gonna be similar mechanics. Like, are you sneaking around, like, hiding from zombies, or are you, like, in a gunfight or whatever? But I do feel like it added some more things. Like, it wasn't going to be, like, an entirely new game, though. But it did add, like, the Rat King was, like, an exciting part. And even, like, the scars, like, don't they communicate by whistling to each other and stuff like that? And
Oh,
Yeah.
100%,
Oh,
yeah.
There was a lot of new stuff,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
they added.
There's new enemies as well, the Shambler and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And to their credit, I don't think they really have much space to work with. Like, it's The Last was, if you get past its, the initial, if you suspend your disbelief just for the mushroom zombies and all, the rest of it's really realistic. Like, it's totally grounded, apart from that initial, So I don't know.
If you can look past the bullshit, the game actually makes a lot of sense. Like, you know?
Yeah, if you get past the initial pitch.
I get it. I don't want to be selling the game short on its gameplay.
Oh, 100%. It's a lot of fun.
I think it's fantastic.
You've
It's
a lot more
just-
options than the first
I think
game.
the
It's
problem
just,
maybe came more down to pacing or the amount of gameplay versus story.
Because your fingers
and
got too
just
tired
things
playing
like
the
that.
game. You had to stop to
exactly.
chill your
That's
fingers
exactly
in ice because they started cramping.
I had to do little stretches, get an ergonomic controller.
No, I think they did add enough kind of like it felt like Uncharted at points, like those car set pieces, and that kind of leads me into what was your favorite set piece. No one ever
Can I
like
say
don't
the
all
Rat
just say
King?
the Rat King though, because come on,
Damn it.
like, the Rat King is mine though. Yeah. Okay. Well, do you want to talk about like the Rat King then first?
Sure. It was kind of hinted at in the first game as well, wasn't it? Like, and I had heard some behind the scenes of they wanted.
I think they
to,
took him out.
Yeah, they wanted to bring this thing in, and there was character models made for it, but they took it out. And then I don't know. Since then, I felt like they were gonna bring something like that into this game. I did feel weird that it was Abby playing against. I thought maybe they'd have you as Ellie. I feel like Ellie's kind of grown up with a lot of this stuff, and you experienced it with her in the previous game. Like, what's this? It's a loader or whatever. I felt like they should have done it with her. But either way, I thought it was great.
I liked it with Abby as well because it could kind of fuel her. This is me, I'm probably overthinking it, but it can fuel her kind of hatred for Joel even more, even though it's past the point that she's killed him. But it's just like, I really, really wish we had cured this. And especially she's in a hospital and she's seeing like patient zero. And it's this amalgamation of all these fucking guys stuck together to make one super fucking clicker zombie.
super mushroom person.
Yeah, one big
It is
mushroom.
kind of ridiculous, but
I actually thought it was.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
the most
it's so
grounded
horrific that
way
you-
of doing it though. Like the original footage or the original drawings, or whatever, of the one in the first game looked more kind of fantastical, with like I think tentacles, like something out of
It looks
the
a little
thing.
Resident Evil-y.
Oh, that's actually why I love the
Yeah.
Rat King. It felt like something out of
Yeah.
Resident Evil, but a lot more grounded, where it doesn't like it has different forms in this game. But it's all
The way
it's
it's
parts, like it falls off. It's not like it's gonna mutate into a fucking horse like in Resident Evil. It's not gonna turn into a dragon with a fucking eyeball.
it definitely feels like a bit of a departure, but in a good way. You're like, no, this makes sense. I can get with this. It's not like it's a giant water shark thing that has 8 heads and all this ridiculous type of
and the
shenanigans.
The setup, like it's in the basement where they like threw all the bodies
for 20 years.
So yeah, for like Patient Zero. But it's a kind of a shame though, because they can never have another one in the game if they ever did a sequel game, which I don't know if they would do. But you can never have that again because it's set up in such a way that it's like, these are Patient Zero. They've been living there for
What's it, 25 years?
as you said, like 20 years or something. Unless they
Maybe they could do something like they explain the Shamblers away as, because it rains a lot, that sort of adds to the mutation. So maybe if one of them fell into the water or something, if they spend a lot of time in the water, they start to...
Didn't the Shamblers... It was the Shamblers, wasn't it, that were the like kind of sneaky
Oh,
ones?
Stalkers in the original.
Stalkers,
'Cause
sorry.
they can see you, but they'll kill you if they touch you. They're like between.
Well, they're different, yeah. In which, the Stalkers or the Shamblers?
The ones that look like a clicker, but they look more like almost like a tree.
Yeah, so they're in the original they
They're the
were
Stalkers.
because people, when the game came out, they were talking about how, oh no, there weren't Stalkers in the original. I'm like, guys, I literally just played it. There were. Now they're totally different enemies. They
there?
act differently, but there are Stalkers in the original.
I don't remember seeing them.
They're by far, they're only in the game at one section, and they're terrible. The worst enemy ever. It's in what's your man's name? The fisherman who makes the he makes the
You're thinking
the
of
little
Ellie,
ca-
man.
no the fisherman, the guy who Mitch or so, whatever, where the kids are. He was a fisherman in the first. Now this is the first game. This is only through letters. It's only through letters you hear about this guy. It's where Henry and Sam you get split up with Henry and Sam.
Oh yes,
in the cave.
Yeah, I do remember that. You're like
Anyways.
in the sewers or something, and
Oh, yeah.
that like you see like
Yeah.
the society had built up in there. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the only part in the game where there's
I
stalkers
do
in the
remember
first
that,
one.
yeah.
I think.
Oh, that's interesting. I should go back and look at that. That's
Yeah. They're
But
not.
there's
They're not that fun to
another
fight
bad
at all.
guy in that as well. They were like big stocky guys, but they didn't have like
There were bloaters, yeah.
they had like a big solid like shell almost of a head. They didn't have all the weird fungus coming out of them like
Flickers.
the big fuckers in the new game who were like naked. They were like
Well, in the original, there were the clickers, the stalkers, the runners, and the bloaters. And then
Okay,
in
then
the
They added
yeah,
I'm
Shamblers.
thinking of something else then.
and the new
And the
one they
Rat
added in the shamblers. Yeah, and the Rat King. Yeah,
That
I like the
fucking Rat
names. Yeah.
King, though. Oh, no, it's a cool.
Clicker's a
world they've
great
built
name for a
it, you know?
zombie. It's a very unique name, yeah. But yeah, the Rat King is pretty. The way it's built up is done very well as well. Because you sort of realize something terrible is going to happen. You're like, oh no.
And I like that's why like the Abby thing is kind of cool that she's the one that has to do it, and because I kind of preferred the stuff that you got playing Abby, so the guns were kind of better and everything.
Yeah,
so
she
it
plays
was
like
a lot
Joel,
more-
which is very interesting. Like the way that you don't need to,
Yeah.
you don't need the whatever you call them, the specific
The shields.
knives and stuff.
Knives
like,
that you
sneak up
need
on
that
people,
as,
break their
Ellie,
neck
yeah.
and shit like that.
Very quick aside about the Rat King. If you stop and just watch it, how fast it can actually run, it's really scary. Like it's really fast.
I thought that whole thing
It
was
was really
fucking
well done.
scary.
Yeah.
That was terrifying. Like
Oh,
the whole
yeah.
setting, like of it in the
Very
flooded
little light and
basement.
stuff as well, isn't it?
And oh man, that game is still like it's funny how the red light because
Yeah.
it's like the emergency lights that they put on, and like I think it's all flooded with cars and stuff as well. But like the whole that game was scary like in both ways because I see this game as a horror game, and you know I don't know what other people would consider it, but I would see it as a horror game. It's a horror game, but it's a drama with a horror setting. But like it's funny how
Yeah.
like scary it can be where it's like you can completely forget that the zombies are even in it. Like
Yeah.
the Rat King's scary, but then it's just like when other people like have you like, oh god, they're gonna beat him to death, or like please don't torture this character or do worse things, because it's very much like a world filled with like rape and torture and like even the kind of the more subdued kind of background stuff where you're walking through the facility of all the wolves and Isaac, who's the head of them, played by Jeffrey Wright. I fucking loved when Jeffrey Wright showed up.
I heard you two ran into some trouble.
He's torturing them all, and it's
Oh,
just
it's very
like, God.
totalitarian. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, he's torturing all the cult members who you think are like void of emotion, but it's they're all you can clearly tell that okay, fuck, they're all getting completely fucked up in there, and they're all cracking, and releasing information. I
Yeah.
found it interesting that Jeffrey Wright was in it though, because the woman that co-wrote it, Haley Gross, she wrote Westworld, and Jeffrey Wright's a huge character in Westworld. And I think that's why I think the story has gotten 10 times better than the first game. I think it's much better. I also think he probably needed a second opinion, because it's not just writing about Joel. I'm sure he had writers on the first one, but these two are credited as the main two.
There were two on the first, but I've been very. You see, I played them so recently. I didn't actually. Normally, when I play something and I enjoy it, I'll read everything I can about it or watch everything I can about it. But with these, it didn't help that we were in the middle of a pandemic, so I kind of wanted to move away from them as soon as possible, just because it
It's so
starts to get to you.
depressing.
Yeah, it's so. Like what I say when I was finished the first Last was I didn't even want to touch things in real life. I just felt kind of like, ugh,
Did you think you'd become a
Um,
zombie, David?
I'll become a mushroom. So
Giant COVID.
I really like the flashback sequence with Ellie and Joel when they go into the museum. When he secretly takes her to the museum that he found, the abandoned museum, on her birthday.
Close your eyes. It'll be worth it.
Okay.
She's getting all excited, seeing all the dinosaur stuff, and Joel's talking about Jurassic Park, and then they go up to the space bit, and she gets really excited, and they have that whole bit.
They can't say the name though. An old movie about dinosaurs.
No, I thought it was good though. It's like
Billy and
kind of
the
tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
No, that scene is amazing. There's a scene as well, just to bring up Miles Morales again, that's very like that, where you're walking around like a museum. But yeah, no, but like again, I don't know how long you took doing it. I fucking went to everything thinking I'd win something or I'd unlock some secret thing after I missed the guitar thing. So like I put that hat on all the fucking dinosaur bones,
Yeah.
thinking that something else would come out it,
Was there not like a
You get a trophy
or
for
something
it, yeah.
that, though?
Oh, but I meant like something
Yeah.
built into the game. I don't care about all the trophies and stuff. David just died a little on the side.
sadness. Sure, that's why I didn't play the first one for so long, because the glitch trophies. I loved the facts you learn, like the fruit flies into space type thing, and the scene. I don't know how Joel got that tape of the
That's
initial...
why I like The Last of Us too. The learning.
Yeah.
It's educational. Mom, it's educational. Mom.
But yeah, I just really enjoyed that set piece because I think that's, I don't know, for me that's where these games really shine, is just that they can have all these character moments that you just wouldn't have in other games.
For sure. David, you got one?
Oh, I do, absolutely. Those are all great scenes. Mine is a lot more, it's not a big one, quote unquote, but it's when you first encounter the Seraphites and you're playing as Ellie, and like the very first time you see them, you get hit in the shoulder with an arrow, and then you can't properly see who did it until you see these people with like pitchforks and torches and everything, and they're just whistling to each other. I remember taking them out and I was like, that is the creepiest thing ever. They don't even, like just the lighting, the fire, the flames, the burning car. You don't even see them again, I think, for a few hours after that. You just have this one quick, these are the type of people that you'll be dealing with later on. It's and the music as well that plays is just a very slow thud just in the background, and you're just, everything stops as you're trying to figure out what's going on.
I think it was really cool and atmospheric when you're like going through the long grass and there's just the flames and the rain and the whistling.
It's survival horror.
Good.
Yeah, it's straight up.
What do you think of the Seraphites in general and their whole community and the whole storyline with Lev?
I thought they were a bit much at the start because it was like, I'm counting down anything set in the apocalypse when there's weird cult members who speak in a funny way and they have their own rituals, but they were fucking scary, and they weren't, it completely went against my expectation of, like, you think Isaac is going to show up on the island and Isaac's going to be a big villain to fight because Abby, wants to protect Lev, and you think the cult leaders will have some divine leader that's going to be a bad guy too. No, they're just kind of in the background and they're off doing their own thing. So it worked. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it was great. I think it was a great set piece as well.
The whole
Visually,
city on fire,
the burning village and everything.
Fucking
Yeah,
amazing.
really cool.
And the brutality of them with Abby in particular, where you're biting off ears, you're cutting people's faces open, fucking amazing.
It's interesting as well if you think about it in the context of the world, that presumably they could be like completely self-sustainable there and just have no fungus. If they had proper order there, it would be interesting. I think it's interesting.
David, are you saying that you'd be one of them?
No, God, no. I do think it's interesting that they go into detail about the different societies that have sprung up around the place. Like, I'd love to see outside the US, or even just around the US, but outside, like, what's Europe like, what's Africa like, what's Australia.
It's completely fine. It only happened in America. Everyone's fine in Europe.
Yeah.
I that's why I like you're talking about the exploration of the world. That's why I think the resort guys were so evil that I wanted to see more of them. And that actually would be another one of my favorite parts of the game, is that whole last act of just playing as Ellie again and fucking everyone up.
Yeah. Do you think, though, it's a little weird that it's sort of like with Isaac stuff, where they sort of appear in the game for only like a very brief moment, and you're like, oh, this is kind of, I feel kind of like they didn't fully explore. Now, I know they only have X amount of time to do this, and it's all the resources and all, but it felt like they weren't fully, there could have been a lot more done with them. Even with the Seraphites, like, they don't really go much into the mythology or like what their beliefs are. They're just that they're a cult.
I get that, but I think it was a conscious decision where it was like, it's not about that, it doesn't matter, because then I feel like, as much as I would like to see that, it's almost really indulgent in a way that it's like
they're just a means to an end.
Yeah,
not a means to an end, but like a
to see.
Yeah,
like the villain, the like you're gonna fight the leader of the cult, and you're gonna get burnt in a giant wicker man or some shit like that we've seen lots of times before in a game.
Oh yeah, but even if like, well, they do sort of do this, but even just a little more snippets of like lore bits that you can find just to explain. But I take what you mean.
I think
that
you get them.
There are a few,
the mother, the woman that they all like, but she's long dead.
I was surprised that she was dead. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. All I can say is on that front, I'm glad. I know some people aren't too happy about it, but I'm glad they're doing a mini series, like HBO are doing a Last of Us series, or whoever's doing it. I don't know. They could explore it in that.
I have questions about that I'll talk to you towards the end of this, because I think it would be kind of shitty of us, or a disservice for me, not to talk about the crunch.
Oh yeah.
That I don't even know what that is. I know you think of Crunch, Glenn, and you think of
Captain Crunch.
David, you can explain the crunch then, can you?
Well, yeah, for anyone who isn't aware, first of all,
I'm not
crunch
aware, so
generally is a phenomenon that's fortunately pretty endemic to a lot of creative industries, but in a lot of places too, where very long working hours and very not very pleasant necessarily work conditions. It differs from wherever you are, you know, what company you're in. But Naughty Dog got into a bit of hot water about how allegedly the working conditions there is a lot of very long hours. It's not a very in some ways it can be a little toxic as a workplace. Not exactly very enjoyable all the time to be working there. They do have quite a high staff turnover. People do say that could be because, oh, well, once you have a Naughty Dog game in your CV, you can go off and do anything. That might be true, but I still think it's
also
interesting.
could be that they could all just be bastards, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think you should. I don't think you can very easily just chuck away the whole crunch thing if you're just going to, you know, I think you can't explain it away that easily. Or at least it's something to consider that they have a high staff turnover. So, and there was a bit of controversy with this as well because The Last of Us won, Neil Druckmann won Best Director, and people, or I think he was nominated, or at least, and people were suggesting that if your project runs into crunch, should you be eligible for that type of award? Because if crunch, depending on the situation, it could be evidence, like with CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077 just came out, and there's a whole thing about the poor management can really, really exacerbate crunch. Like people say it's endemic, but there are like Supermassive and Nintendo and all where apparently crunch doesn't happen or people are generally well treated. So I don't know. I don't work for Naughty Dog. I wasn't there. I just think probably a good idea to acknowledge this and point
That's
it out
what
to
your
people.
lawyer says, David.
That's what my lawyer. Yeah, they're gonna come.
What do you
Neil
think?
Druckmann's gonna kick
about
me
it as a I guess like
as a feature.
morally, you know what I mean? Because I know people that haven't played this game that said I'm not playing it, I'm boycotting it because of it.
Yeah,
like,
no, I
Jesus,
understand.
I did that with every movie though. Fucking
Yeah.
hell, because movies like from a
Well,
movie point of view.
yeah.
You have to work
Yeah, no,
a
but
long fucking time, but I don't know the ins and outs. Like, why would a worker bee have to spend his entire weekend there and not see his family? You know what I mean?
there's all
Because
sorts of stories,
this
like people
game, you know?
divorces and all this type of stuff that happen as a result of this. And people say, well, it's just an inevitable part of the industry. But again, I don't necessarily think
It doesn't have to be, though.
yeah, it doesn't have to be. I don't think that's an excuse, or I don't think we should shut down the discussion because of that. Oh, well, of course it happens, so why should we? But no, I take your point that it's some people like to work under those conditions, or I've done it before where on projects where there's this creative flow you get into. But
by choice, though, not by
yeah,
like, David,
there's a difference.
You're not going to go see your
Exactly,
family,
yeah.
you know, until you've finished it. It's like,
I think
why
that's
am I doing this? I'm the most minor person. It's not like Neil Druckmann, if he's putting in the time of not seeing his family, fair enough. It's his baby, you know. He's getting the credit for it.
Yeah.
But if it's like the most minor person being like, why can't I go see my newborn kid?
Yeah, that's
because this is more important, you know.
the two
Now,
things.
get in there and fucking do the graphics on that rain.
Yeah, the two things for me are one, I don't think people should either deride or mock people who don't want to crunch. I think that's kind of screwed up. And two, I think I think the element a lot of people don't think of with the crunch discussion is that it's the difference, like you said, Carl, between willingly doing it or there's a culture in the company where if you go home at 5:30 or 6 in the evening, you're lazy compared to staying till 8 or 9 or 10 or midnight. When the rest of them, you may not be
does
literally
look bad,
contractually bound to stay there, but if you're the only one leaving, you can sort of feel
I
like,
feel like you do get that in films, obviously. Like I know Toy Story 2, for example, was made under them conditions and stuff. And obviously a lot of games are. But like you look at like even hospitals, a lot of doctors have to stay back and like past the hours that they're contracted to. Like they don't have to, but you know they should.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a doctor.
That's true,
you know,
yeah,
like,
but
this guy's bleeding out. Get in there and animate that fucking rain. You lose it. You fucking waste of space. Like even with a
changing the world
movie,
with this video game.
I don't think games have been unionized, but movies have more
Yeah.
so, you know, in America than over here. But because there's unions, it's like, no, I'm working my 12 hours if that's what's in the contract, and then I'm going home for what little time I can, and then I'm back in tomorrow. I'm not staying, and you can't manipulate somebody because if you break those rules, it'll fuck up your entire film if you're doing it that way.
I think it's good when there's unions and that way because it does put everyone on a level playing field where, you know, everyone's working the same amount of hours regardless of their passion for the project or although, I mean, maybe not perfect. I'd say some people still will work
More
extra
ideal, I
hours,
guess.
Obviously. But
You'll
yeah,
get less fuck ups, you know. With like, look at Cyberpunk that just came out. That was
Yeah.
terrible because
Failure
they
of
had to do a
management
crunch.
altogether.
And then what the
yeah, and
backers
that was
wanted
all
it to
based
be
in
released.
Poland.
that was it. That was in Poland as well. So it's a whole other
What if they didn't? If they
working
didn't
environment
have
over
to
there.
crunch though, would the game have been? Well,
The game
surely
still
would have
wouldn't
been
be out.
worse then, though.
Well, it was,
Yeah.
It's the fact that they had to do that and then it didn't get released because it was, I believe, the finances that wanted it. But if people got unionized in the gaming world, that means it's like the finances could bitch and moan as much as they want, and it would still be like, well, we're not getting anything done because we're working union hours. So you can complain as much
Yeah.
as you want, but you're going to release a broken game, and that's for sure. You know what I mean? So
it's
up to them,
it's
you know?
all a scale. Like there are companies that are apparently very nice to work for, or like like I said, Supermassive. Nintendo have always had. Nintendo will have like magic pixie dust where they can do whatever they want and it seems to work for them. Or even a lot of news journalist sites, and I'm sure it's like this in film, in different types of journalism, where there can be very seriously brutal, maybe not intentionally brutal, but it just ends up being brutal conditions where you get this game that's 60 hours long and you have to review it by like tonight. So you have to just sit there and just play through it. I think the important thing is that the discussion happens and that, you know, we can work towards, you know, fixing it or, you know, being more well-rounded.
Yeah.
Why do you like the game? Like, why did you, well, not why you liked it, but why were you drawn into it? Why do you consider it? I guess it's going to be, I know for Andy and Glenn and me, it's probably in our top 5 games, both the first one and the second one combined, you know what I mean? Probably in the top 5. David, I'm sure yours is...
The first one definitely is
I won't
very
even
high
go
up.
there what your favorite game
Yeah.
is, but...
Yeah, the first definitely is. The second, I think, is very good, but I don't know if I'd... Again, it's such a miserable experience that, like, is in literally, and as it's intended to be. I don't look back on it fondly, if you know what I mean. You just think, oh, that was really horrific. I guess that's the whole, it's succeeding. It's not fun.
Yeah, it's a dismal game.
Yeah.
Like, and I think to answer the question of what drew me towards it would be, it's like just a massive. It's like just the number one. Like, it's a huge budget, huge spectacle, huge point of discussion for everyone. I think it's a game that everyone should play, and if you have a PlayStation, you should go and play it because
Yeah, 100%.
it is one of the best games out there. And I think with The Last of Us 2, the reason I went for it is because, like, everyone is playing it, and it's, you know, it's going to be good.
So, you do what the masses tell you.
Yes.
You bow to the collective.
Yeah,
I
you're
know,
sheep.
I know.
Is that what you're
I'm a
saying?
sheep.
Why did you go like gravitate towards it, Glenn?
I think I got the first game on lend off you, Andrew. And
Jeez, Andrew,
Oh,
you're
really?
a saint. You're a fucking saint for these games, aren't you? Do you work for them, man? You fucking lended me the second one and him the first one.
That's funny, because I thought I had borrowed the first game when I played it the first time around, unless I sublet it to you.
yeah, I think you did. Didn't you borrow it off your brother? And I borrowed it off
That's
you or
scummy,
something?
man.
Oh shit, I think I might have. It's like,
Um,
oh, he won't be down for like another week here, have it. Just don't break it.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I love the whole horror zombie aspect of it, but like, what I loved about it, I think, was just the world building, especially in the first one. I thought it was just amazing to see, like, particularly how all the different groups, like, developed their own, like, so you have people that are like waiting on the highway to ambush you. You have cannibals there trying to eat you, and then you have like the people that have gone and set up their own
Giraffe.
town. You have giraffes.
Look, giraffe.
Who have their own little.
I feel like that's
You know,
that's your whole thing about the game. Look, giraffe.
I played it mainly for the giraffes, to be honest, and partially for the zombies. But
Really makes you feel like a giraffe.
We actually never talked about
The
I think
giraffe
the giraffe moment is one of my favorite like moments from both the games.
It is
I
a
mean,
great
obviously it's
moment. It is
cliche,
nice.
everyone loves it, but I think it's just really well done.
Yeah.
Come on.
Hey there. So fucking cool.
well, what I love is like just before it, because just before it is the cannibal scene where Ellie's nearly eaten. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And
man,
then, like,
we never even talked about him.
You could
about
do a whole
David's-
episode on the first one. It's very... Nolan North actually voices
Yeah.
him. Which is
Tune
really
in
crazy.
next week.
It's difficult to cover everything.
Yeah.
Because the two games are very long. It's like
Yeah.
talking about 2 seasons of a TV show or more even.
Honestly,
When you
like
think at the length of it.
I didn't want to talk about too much about the first one because I'd have to replay it, which I probably will after this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The first one did have its fucking amazing moments too, like, but I think it all kind of happened for me towards the end of the game. That whole thing of just trying to get Ellie back and killing everybody was pretty amazing, and torturing that guy, There's other moments as well, though, like the cannibal bit in particular was quite brutal because he's kind of rapey as well, if I remember. He's pretty, he's pretty rapey.
It's Nolan North that plays it, isn't it? He plays him really well.
It is.
He sounds a bit like your man from South Park, but which
he does actually sound a lot like your man from South Park.
Well, you handled yourself pretty nice back there. I'd say we make a pretty good team.
We got lucky.
Lucky? No.
If they were really going for realism and stuff, which I know they are, but it's like, I think they were one step away from, this is the bit with the KKK show up, It's like a fucking militant group that are just a bunch of neo-Nazis, I was waiting for something like that to happen, but,
I mean,
even if it's clear, like...
I mean, if it happened in real life, I think something that happened and the whole context of when The Last of Us 2 came out, there were some unfortunate things that I think impacted on the story a bit. I mean, The Last of Us 2, a game about an outbreak and a game about a global pandemic coming out during a global pandemic.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly the ray of hope that people were looking for.
Yeah.
Let's not throw the KKK into it as well.
It was meant to come out in April, or it was meant to come out a few times. It got delayed a few times. It came out in June, but in the height of COVID, we're still in the height of COVID, but it was definitely a grim time in the real world, and for a plot that also centers around the creation of a vaccine, and there were certain bits in it that I think, given the context of everything that was going on, it might have just taken away from it, or that tonally might not have matched up, or might not have come across right. I think the fact that I remember playing it, and the first game ended, and the whole plot of the first game was about the vaccine and about, oh, well, if we just get Ellie and we just operate on her, we'll have a vaccine. And I think for people who don't know anything about medical science or anything like that, you just take it at face value. But I think when the game came out in 2020, and there was still a huge amount of the plot did revolve around what had happened at the end of the first game, I think it's also people really look into that moral choice where, well, was it a given? Because we're trying to make vaccines now and it seems pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what would have been taken as, oh, well, if Joel had just made this simple choice and sacrificed Ellie, then he would have saved the world, where we don't know that. Vaccine production's really difficult. How would this post-apocalyptic world ever manufacture enough vaccines for whatever population is left? Where are the resources to do this?
And even
how likely is it that one patient would be the answer to this? All they know is that she's immune, but that might not mean anything. So I think it opens up more questions. That I was definitely, and it made it less cut and dry.
You found it particularly hard to swallow because you're watching it there with your doctorate, you know what I mean? So it's much more difficult for you to watch it. This is so unrealistic.
Should just drink some 7-Up and ice cream.
Glenn, as a medical professional.
Oh, no. Let's not go there. I don't need to know what's accurate and not accurate in The Last of Us. Well, the thing about the mushroom is it actually produces it. I don't care.
You know, it's edible in real life.
Do you reckon they're in level 5 or?
Do you think the game coming out in COVID impacted or had an effect on how the story impacted you?
I replayed the first one during the pandemic, and I was just looking around at all the little medical buildings and stuff, with masks thrown everywhere and everything, and during the height of the pandemic I was like, oh god, this is what we're
masks on, all this type of stuff.
Yeah, put your gas masks on, everyone. You have to go into a shopping center.
So they don't do anything. That gives you cordyceps.
I don't think it affected me too much. It gave me more time to play the game, so it was nice.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I was saying as well. It was nice to be able to play a game, but not in one sitting, obviously, but kind of just I fuck all else to do. I can't go out, you know what I mean? So I may as well play this for the next, I don't know, week, you know what I mean? Every part of the day was just dedicated to that, you know? Was there any new characters introduced, or is there any side characters that you thought, and maybe let's keep it to the second one, that you thought were a great addition and that you really liked? Maybe not Abby though, because I mean, I personally liked Abby a lot, but she's like a main character, like more like side characters that you thought were really fucking good to add into it, and
I
were
liked
really
the kids, the Scar kids, Lev in particular. It's cool to see their world like through their eyes because they're like telling Abby or whatever, like, oh, and we do this and we have all these sky cranes or whatever, and like they're explaining their world how they see it, and then some things that like even Abby's there question is like, is that not a bit bullshit that you all have to whatever, like you couldn't shave your head or whatever stuff, and like I just like the world building of it, but it was all coming from like these kids' perspective of how like they're obviously innocent because they're just kids, and like
they were born.
Yeah.
Lev was born into it. I'm pretty
yeah,
sure.
and like
They
these
don't
are
know
like
the
the
world
enemies of
prior.
the wolves or the WLF or whatever that like the scars are, and like they're supposed to be all the, like evil, but they're just kids, and like like Abby relates to the kids, you know, and it like takes away from the
I like that you were able to learn about the Seraphites through Lev, and like he was able to tell what kind of happened, and you got a sense of what they were like. They were this kind of extremist, very religious person for casting them out.
Lev is transgender in it, and I think they handle that so well where they talk about it, where it's like no one, it's not like them announcing it and it's like it's very much like there's a moment where they have to talk about it. It's the fact is it's quite sinister where it's like they want me to be this thing that I'm not, and then they just go with it. You know what I mean?
I heard some of your people calling him Lily.
For a long time, I didn't understand why he was questioning the laws, the traditions. When he explained to me how he felt inside, I told him he had to keep it to himself. I was hoping he'd snap out of it. He seemed fine for a while. But then he shaved his head.
In fact, you wouldn't even realize, like, if you're not paying attention to like what the some of the scars yell out at you or Lev, and if you're not fully like, it's not a huge. I don't think I'm qualified to even go near the whole conversation on a macro level, so it doesn't like you're saying, it doesn't call attention to it the way you would think.
Yeah, other characters that I think I actually really enjoyed the character of Dina. I don't really know why.
Sorry, yeah, she was fantastic.
I just thought she was I
very
think she
realistic.
was yeah, I think that's what it was. I think she felt very real and very grounded, and I think she was a great contrast to Ellie because it really brought out Ellie's kind of like just how obsessed she was, and to have this person there who was,
especially at the end when they're living in the house together and stuff.
I think having a character like that to kind of ground it and be like, look at what you have, and like, why are you doing this? It kind of drove home how far gone Ellie was.
Her baby would be long dead though. She fell through buildings. She did all this stuff when she was pregnant. I was like, that baby should be well dead, you know? It was cool to have them have that slice of life on the farm because the PTSD was so disturbing.
What do you think of Jesse?
Oh, I like Jesse too,
Jesse
and when
was
he
good.
died, it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I felt kind of sorry for it. It felt like he was just sort of discarded out of the story. I know they named JJ after him.
I mean, he had a real unceremonious death.
Yeah.
But I kind of like when they do that, you know, where they just, it's like, oh, you just got blasted in the face, you're fucked.
Same thing happens to
That's him
Manny.
gone.
A few on the other side also were just discarded like that as well. So I'm not saying, but just felt weird. Felt kind of sorry for.
I totally felt the Manny one coming though.
Yeah.
I remember.
I thought you'd fight Manny a lot more because he was I didn't like Manny at all throughout it. Even like when you got to see that other side of him, I was like, you're still kind of a prick.
Yeah.
But the own character I loved. He was very like, when he died, I was like, for fuck's sake, he made all the right decisions. Really was not a bad guy, and then got killed. So that was a shame.
He cheated on his woman, though, to be fair.
Come on, it's the end of the world.
Your one, Mel, was she the one who was pregnant?
Mel was the pregnancy, yeah.
I thought it was for Dina as well. I thought it was like, guys, he is really doing this going into a war zone when you're but anyways.
Yeah, the whole male thing though, where they were like throwing her onto a truck with a gun or whatever.
Yeah. I'm shooting for 2 here.
I like that though.
Yeah, that was a little bit.
It's how kind of fucked up they are. Where it's like, well, you're a doctor. We need you out there, like,
Yeah.
And she didn't want to leave Owen, I think, alone with Abby. I can't remember. There was a nice little love triangle going on there that had a very satisfying conclusion when the awkwardness of him choosing Abby over her, and then she just gets killed. Great stuff. David, do you have a favorite character or a new character?
I don't know if I'd say favorite or new. Like, I liked them all generally. Like you were saying, Manny felt a bit. They have a bit of an issue at the start because we're seeing it from Ellie's perspective and Joel's perspective. They have to work hard for us to like them again because you're already the initial.
Manny spits on him and everything.
Yeah, and you're like, this guy kind of.
And you don't live enough with him to be like. I just remember him. The reason why I don't like him is when he cuts the line.
Yeah.
I was like, you bastard! Never cut the fucking line.
I know, yeah, guys. There's an honor system we're dealing with here, guys. Without it, society crumbles.
Without the end of the world or not, don't cut the fucking line.
Already crumbled.
So it's it will re-crumble.
Even more so now.
Crumble even more so, yeah. I didn't have any serious I really like these characters. It was sort of the same with the first with the side characters. It really was mostly the main characters. Like, I liked Abby a lot and the Scar kids. But beyond that, the rest were like, oh yeah, these guys are cool. You just generally feel sad for everyone on either anyone's side. You're like, it's really tragic, the whole thing.
What did you think of the original score and the original music in this game?
I didn't think it was as good as the first one.
I don't really remember much of
I
it.
have to agree.
Apart from this when you first see the Seraphites, the little, but that's just a beat. But that was the first one.
That was good actually. But yeah, I thought they would bring in more of the first. I still liked it, but I thought they would bring in more of the first one's score.
Like the first one's score, yeah, it's just
music.
very special.
I think the first one's pretty much iconic at this stage. Is Gustavo I don't know how to pronounce his surname, Santaolalla. But I think his score in the first game was like one of the best in games.
Perfect, yeah.
It's a new game, new character, new score though as well, and I think the game kind of did it for me with music from the trailer to when the game was over. I was hooked. So just the trailer when she sings the Through the Valley song, a fucking amazing trailer.
Yeah.
Because I know I'll kill my enemies when they come.
Never made it to the game, I don't think.
No. It was more
still,
Pearl Jam.
brilliant.
But it was good, yeah. It was a very good trailer song. One thing I'll finish on this is like, David, you brought it up earlier with TV shows or how they do an adaptation, but how would you, because I have my opinions, but how would you do an adaptation of this? Would you do it through TV or through film? My thing would be 100% do it through TV.
TV, yeah.
And don't go too far with it,
Yeah, I think video game adaptations to other media get a really bad rap, which makes total sense. It's most of them are terrible.
This is basically a movie already, though, which is kind of
like we have examples of like it working in both My Beloved Sonic movie, of course, and then you have Castlevania for TV. So I do think TV is the best way to go. Oh, you guys, I had to get it in somewhere. The TV, what I would do is, I think there's a few ways you could do it. One, you could do it as it's happening, and you could even really make it depressing by how there's early signs of, the vaccine's going to work, and it's only like 6 months into the outbreak, and then you're like, they're desperate to find this thing that just doesn't work. Or you could follow different characters throughout. I'd kind of like to, if they really wanted to be nasty with it, they could make it very heavily parallel to COVID, except obviously way worse with the, and really, if you really wanted to go into the paranoia of it. But yeah,
that would be ballsy.
That would be, yeah. I would respect the artistry.
It's pretty much already like it.
But people might think
it's just like,
yeah.
If they were doing the start of it, it's like gradually it's in the background, and it's like people are like, it's in China, it's not gonna reach you over. Oh shit,
Yeah.
And you can kind of take that approach, but any kind of infection thing, I feel like, pretty much is going to play out like COVID. Where people kind of don't really know what it is until it's too late, and when it's too late.
Unlike COVID is obviously really terrible, but it obviously in The Last of Us, it destroys the entire, was it 2/3 of the world population or something?
Have it like COVID where just it's all through Zoom. it's a lot less dangerous. So there is clickers, but as long as you stay in your house.
Yeah, you could even start it
through
on Zoom calls. That's how
Yeah.
the show starts. It's just them talking about the news or whatever, and it gets more and more.
You could just add on to stuff, I guess. You know, you could make more characters more developed. You have flash, like there's a whole side game that I never played where Ellie.
You could follow
I think it's
characters
when
in
they
the game.
actually revealed
Yeah.
that she was a lesbian. You could do that
In
as
the
a whole
DLC, yeah.
string of
Have
episodes.
you
like-
played
you know what I mean?
that
No,
DLC?
You haven't played
have
Left Behind?
No,
You should.
Oh,
It's
should.
good.
Never got it.
It's amazing.
I should get it, yeah.
Good.
You could show like how the cannibals.
It also fills in
fell to it.
fills in a little bit of a gap in the first game's narrative as well. So I definitely recommend it.
So you could flesh it out that way. You know, show how the cannibals became like, because they said in the game they've only started turning to cannibalism in the last year. So you could probably show the like desperation of it all.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those shows that like it needs a budget of like a
The Chernobyl guys
Game
are
of
on it. I think.
Thrones
Yeah.
standard. Oh, like they can do the effects on it. Like they do like with HBO shows, they kind of more go towards practical effects, which I think is better. I
Yeah.
hate to see like again, I'm gonna bring up The Walking Dead because it has a lot of comparisons with like cannibals and cults and stuff, but they're all terrible. Like it's a really fucking bad show.
Goes on way too long as well.
Yeah, it went on way too long.
Is it
and,
still
like,
going?
It's just, yeah, it's still
Oh,
going. And really
God.
bad effects and everything. And like, it's one of those things as well where it's like you can see all this thing, you can see child murder, you can see all this stuff, but none of the characters can say fuck. It's like what the hell? You know,
Yeah,
why am
yeah.
I watching this?
Oh,
It's like
I-
in
That
Breaking
always,
Bad.
That always kind of drives me crazy.
Breaking Bad, it's about meth heads and stuff. It's like, why did no one say fuck thee? They are all so polite. Like I know people have done this already, but like a good TV show, and you make it about 4 seasons, and that's the first game and the second game like together. You'd have to make it like that. You'd have to age up the characters. You'd have to have actors playing younger versions of themselves. For like Ellie, you couldn't have like it go like a season a year. You'd have to take a natural pause or just get an actress to play a kid basically for the first game. So like everyone has their ideal casting, but I don't know who would jump to your mind. But like I've seen some people talk about like people would want Hugh Jackman to play Joel, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much played it with Logan though. I'd like to see Henry Cavill play him. Like Henry Cavill looks like him. He's about 37.
Oh, yeah.
He could be good.
Yeah.
It'd be a nice change of his kind of. I mean, I know he's in The Witcher, but like to play a character that as brutal as Joel, I think would be quite cool. I think Ellie's a much harder person. Like Hugh Jackman would be cool too, though. He's like in his 50s, so he'd be the right age. But he's pretty much played that character. If you've seen the movie Logan, he plays the character where he needs to get, you know.
So it wasn't what's her name? Arya from Game of Thrones. Maisie
Maisie
Williams.
Williams,
Wasn't she
Maisie
originally
Williams. Yeah, she
slated
was
to
always
play
rumored
Ellie
to
or
be.
something? But I think that the ship has
Yeah.
kind of sailed on that because she's gotten.
No,
She's like in her
she's too
20s now.
old now. She's like 23 or
So-
24. And, you know.
I feel like she could still play young, but like
Yeah,
think
but
it
I
was set
mean,
as,
like,
like,
not
in part 2,
not like
not
13, 14-year-olds.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
I know they always have like
people-
30-year-olds playing teenagers, but it wouldn't work with that. It would just-
Get Tobey Maguire to play her.
People
There
said
we
the fella who played Jamie Lannister, what's his name?
Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
Yeah, to play him as well. I'm like, he's not very. I mean, I like him as an actor, but I don't think he's very likable as a Joel kind of character. He'd be too. I don't know. I think he'd be too cheeky or something. Like he's got that kind of personality that I go for. Like I see his characters, he's always kind of a smart ass and stuff. So
I haven't seen him in anything other than Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I feel like he can
maybe.
do serious though, you know.
for Ellie, I was looking up ideas today, and like a lot of the ones I looked up or are the ones I thought of myself were already there. So like if it was like Henry Cavill, what's your woman's name? Millie Bobby Brown. They did that Sherlock Holmes movie, but then I was thinking, what I want to see her, and then I was thinking, you know, your woman who plays she plays Mad Max in Stranger Things. Sadie Sink is her name. She's the redheaded one. I was like, she'd be good. She's like 18. She could pass off as like the 14-year-old Ellie, and then when they want to go, you know, older with it, she'd be able to come back and play her in the later kind of second half of it. And then as well, Sophia Ellis, who was Beverly in It. I don't know if she could play the younger one that much,
She
but
could
I
be
thought
pretty
she'd
good.
be very good.
Yeah.
She would be good, actually. Yeah.
I'm trying to. I just actually don't know. I can't think of any child actors. But I
Yeah,
think they're the main ones.
yeah,
So,
pretty much. Yeah, I remember. I
Stranger
was looking.
Things, they're the
Yeah, it was like just
we went
all
to
the
Stranger Things and It.
The
and
fella
then
that plays
that's
Dustin.
all the child actors I know.
Yeah. The guy who played Dustin would be good as Ellie. I looked up who to play Abby as well, and like that's an interesting one because Abby has a very much a body type that Hollywood doesn't want. That movie people wouldn't get cast in movies with that. So like if you're gonna cast somebody, either it's a no-named kind of actor, a first comer, who's now given the chance to do this, you know, who looks like Abby, who's bulked up and everything, or you get another actress, who actually would have to bulk up for the role. I was also thinking like if they bulked up, Jennifer Lawrence would be an interesting choice. If she bulked up for it, because it would be so like against type. But the one that keeps coming back in my mind that was my third one was, why not just cast Brie Larson? Everyone already has such problems with her.
Yeah, I was going to say, why not just go for... That would actually be pretty crazy,
Yeah.
so I don't think that's ever been done.
I think she's a good actress. I think she's in shape as well from the Captain Marvel movie. If she got even more kind of muscular, she's not going to get... Like, she gets more hate. I think she could just absorb it and be like, fuck you all, I'm going to lean into it now, and I'm going to play Abby, and I'm going to go fucking kill your precious Joel.
I actually think she'd be a really good choice. I think she, like...
Be very meta with the
fan
outrage.
I could very much see her in that role.
Just fucking feeds off the hate now.
Just raw sodium.
What about your one that played Brienne of Tarth?
She'd be that's what I feel like. I'm gonna berate you now for it, but I feel like that's what a lot of people's choices would be though, for like, who's a big woman? Let's go Brienne, you know? Why not get the fella that played the Hound to play Abby? That would be good. I'd actually, you know what, if like I'm you know, I don't try to belittle wrestlers who are actors, because I think like Batista is an amazing actor. Like in his like even in like Guardians of the Galaxy he's great, but like if you've seen him in Blade Runner and stuff like that, he's really fucking good. But I'm sure there's I don't watch wrestling anymore, so like, but I'm sure there's a female wrestler out there that could really nail it on the acting point, like, as well, that could like be their first role and have the build to play Abby, you know? Like there's a lot of possibilities there, you know? There's not just the main characters though, there's the other people I'm looking forward to seeing, like Tommy get cast in it, and then not even going into the sequel has so many of the side characters. I think for Isaac, just get Jeffrey Wright back again. You know what I mean?
That's if it even follows
you know what I mean?
the games, though. It could just be a totally different set of characters, which would also be pretty cool, I think. People are kind of down on the show, it seems. People like don't want it to be made.
I think people want... I don't know. I think there's a weird thing with it where people want it to exist as it's... You know, it's a game. It was made to be a game.
Yeah.
This is the way the story should be told. So people will be purists, but it's an adaptation at the end of the day.
Exactly. It's like a book to a film, or a film to...
I think it's a story we're telling in other places.
Could get more people in.
But like we were also saying, like why make a sequel? The first game was so perfect, kind of thing. I feel like you can still add to it and adapt and stuff, you know?
I mean, nothing needs to be made, but it's like...
Monies.
It'll happen, and...
They're going to do it either way, and it sounds like they're going the right route. Like HBO is making it, which means there can be so much nudity, swearing, and violence as you could want, and they're going to have like a good length of an episode, and the production value is probably going to be very high. So, you know, go for it. If it's gonna fail at this, like with all that behind it, then it was going to fail either way. So I'd rather see it made like that than made by some network.
And Druckmann's working on it as well, yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Like it's made by like TV writers.
Yeah, the standard's getting better. We're video game adaptions were coming along.
Yeah, that was us talking about The Last of Us 2. That's probably a longer one than usual, but I think it was needed for a very, very long game.
It's tough to go over everything.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like maybe we will go back and talk about the first game in more detail whenever I get around to replaying it. We'll do a more kind of direct one there. If you haven't played the game, give it a go. You know, if you have 30 hours to spare, you probably do if you're living in Ireland.
As well, Cormac McCarthy's The Road. I haven't read it. I actually been meaning to get it. Apparently,
yeah.
just dropped this in here. Very big in for inspiration for it. So, so that's another option.
No, David, I'm already talking about a game on this films podcast. I can't go talking about literature like that.
Oh yeah, but if someo's gonna be
that's
like,
not
oh,
right,
you
man."
know, it's a book actually before it was a movie. So
I'll
Just,
mention
David,
it.
don't make him read.
Follow 404 Films on Instagram at 404 Films. You can follow me at Instagram at @carlcal_director. Andrew, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Andrew Bradley Media.
David, do you have anything you want people to follow? And anything you want to share?
oh yeah, I do have another podcast.
That's the signal.
Sorry, another podcast? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, the Playback podcast with my mutual friend.
The 404 Films podcast with David Urana. You don't need to shill that.
Quick shout out to
But,
Carl.
Yeah, with my mutual friend
Sorry.
Carl from 404 Games.
Go ahead, shill your other podcast.
Yes, for gaming and nerd culture, the Playback podcast, if it ever comes back, which it will.
Glenn, do you have anything you got to shill your thing, your art, your high art?
Yeah, my beautiful art Instagram at Glenn_Insta_art is. Can you go follow that if you're art?
Yeah. Go look
There's
at
some
that
high
for
quality content on there for sure.
Yeah, some,
a solid few seconds of entertainment you'll still get.
I don't want to call it memes. Like I want to call it like surrealist art because
Avant-garde.
I was going to say shit posting, but
let's say surreal art. It makes it sound better. But there we
Meme
go.
art.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just sing us out
Bye.
there when he is.
If I ever were to lose.
Oh yeah. We'll get on a really depressing now.